Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown here with you on this Saturday morning. Lot going on. It's starting to feel like fall. It's college football season. We're going to be talking with Bill Cameron in the first segment. My mentor in radio business. God, talking to him the other day. Known him, God, since '79. He is the man down in Auburn. Lifelong baseball junkie. So we're going to get into some college football, but also we're going to talk some Atlanta Braves. They've got the Phillies tonight up at the Battery in Atlanta. Nathan Perotti joins us about 15 after. Graduated last year from Arkansas. Played 2 years with Chad Morris, 2 years with Sam Pittman. Get his take on Arkansas, what's going on with their football team. They've got Ole Miss today. That'll be a very important game for both teams. You got to win them all. Sam Pittman and the Razorbacks on a 3-game skid. They've got to get a win. Tough place to be. It is a tough place to get a win. And Ole Miss, look, they got the win last week over LSU 55-49, but Arkansas is a different kind of team. Everything's different every week. 8:34, Kevin Scarbinsky, the Birmingham lead. Scarbo Knows joins us. 8:45, Ken Capps checks in from the Texas State Fair where Big Tex is frying up everything that ever ran, flew, swam, or crawled. At 9:11, Buddy Martin, the Buddy Martin Show down in Ocala. Gators having a game this afternoon against Vanderbilt. You say it's a must-win. Like I said, they're all must-wins. Try losing one as a head coach. I don't care where you are, especially in the SEC. William Halliday, Billy Ray Valentine, the intern, sophomore writer for the Auburn Plainsman, joins us also in the fourth segment, along with one of our high school correspondents, Oakley McFerrin, MBA up in Nashville. Hey, if you think these young kids today aren't interested in staying the full 60 for, college football games, high school, whatever, you're nuts. I know mine are. I know these people are. Let me say a couple of things real quick. Get out to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company today on the square, historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. They're open 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday, or as they say down in Lochapoka, home of the Syrup Sapping Festival, Saturday. But we are here Monday through Saturday as well. But they're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. They've got all the clothes coming in. Devil Dog jeans, the largest Filson order ever, over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. They've got Pendleton, Schaefer, Higher boots, light boots, the Vask boots. They've got hiking boots. They got women's clothes that look great. Duckhead moleskin pants. Bought a pair the other day. I love the place. HewlettandDunn.com. Also, Tom Martin's Body Shop. You get banged up, you live in Memphis, your car or truck's probably been broken into a couple of times. That's Memphis. They can get your windows fixed quickly. They can handle all the insurance paperwork. Tom's got a great staff. Tom Martin Body Shop, G.E. Patterson, B.B. King, downtown Memphis. Can't get anybody better. He is a lifelong St. Paul Bishop Burn graduate, lifelong Mississippi State fan. Let me bring in Bill Cameron right now because Bill, it's Saturday. It's kind of cool up here in Parkin. I'm right outside of Memphis. We go back and forth to Memphis every day. But we were in Auburn last week. My wife, Audrey, is convinced that Auburn is on the surface of the sun. That game, we were tailgating right by the Tiger Tailgate Show. It was a scorcher. And then I thought about poor old Charles Barkley, just all the people mobbing him and all those guys up there. But what an atmosphere it was last week. And now Auburn's off. Braves play tonight at 6 up in the Battery. Going to be competing head-to-head with a kickoff between the Hedges, Georgia, and Kentucky. But let's get your thoughts on the Braves and just the state of baseball with the faster, games and all like that and the future of the sport because it dipped a little bit. But I feel like it's at least going to Atlanta a lot in the Battery. It's very popular.
Yeah. Hey, Rob. First of all, you came down on the only time that it's been hot here in Auburn for a game. It's been really cool. And tonight it's going to be in the 40s here. So, sorry about that. But
hey, we were there at the first game of the season and it was nice.
Unbelievable.
But,
It's been unbelievable. Now we went out to Texas A&M and that was all. Yeah. It was hot. It was hot. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into A&M and Alabama in a little while, but the baseball, I think that the moves Major League Baseball made this year, shortening the games, has just made it more exciting. I mean, the games move along so much more quickly. I saw a stat the other day that there were, I believe, 332 games that lasted 3.5 hours last year. This year, there were 4 regular 9-inning games that lasted that long. So, I mean, the pace of the game has picked up. And let's face it, I mean, it's not just chicks that dig the long ball. There have been more home runs. Home runs are flying, and the Braves have probably the most impressive lineup since the 27 Yankees. It's just unbelievable, the lineup that they have and the excitement that there is. Now, it'll be a disappointment if the Braves don't at least make it to the championship series, much less the World Series.
Yeah, now go over that stat one more time. Last year, there were 332 games in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, that lasted 3.5 hours. This year, there were 4.
Wow. Butch Thompson comes on with us a lot from like mid-January through late June. Love his take on baseball. He talked about last season in the SEC, said the pitch clock is different in the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the SEC. But it's universal, I guess. I think it's the pitch clock, or maybe the way they umpire, the way they call these strikes, but it's different in every conference. But in Major League Baseball, there's no difference, is there?
No, there's not. And, there was a little talk early in the year that maybe they needed to slow it down because batters were having a whole lot of trouble, too. They can't step out like they used to, but everybody adjusted to it, and I think it's great. I'm still not crazy about the put a man on second base when you get to extra innings. I understand they're trying to get that over with quickly, but that's probably the one rule that I'm not a huge fan of. But everything else is fine. The game's more exciting. They enlarging the bases made it just a split second quicker for every base runner, and you had more steals this year than we've had in decades.
What's your Bill? You know all these stats. And you're great. You, Jason Caldwell, Andy Burcham, Rod was incredible with baseball. But pop time is 1.7, 1.8 seconds big time in Major League Baseball. Catcher getting the ball to second.
It's got to be that or better. Yeah, I mean, if you can get it under 1.7, then you've got a chance. But I mean, now with some of the top base runners, I mean, you look Ronald Acuna, the first 40-70 player in history, and you just had 40 and 50 steals. A couple of years ago, 40 steals would have led the majors. Now 40 steals might get you in the top 10. Yeah.
Braves also broke a record last Sunday. We went up after we left Auburn, went up to Atlanta for a couple of days to see our daughter. And they, I think it was 347 or what was the number on the home runs for the team? But I think it's a major league record.
They hit the record. The major league record had been 309, and they passed that. I don't even know what their final number was, but yeah, they're the team with the most homers ever. I believe they have the most 20 homer hitters on a team that any team's ever had as well.
4? Is that what it is?
Oh no, I think they had 620 homer hitters on the team.
Oh, okay. But Ronald Acuna, and he's from Venezuela. Billy Roberts is on with us a lot. We went to Auburn together and lives up in Atlanta. I call the Braves fans Bravesologists. I mean, they study them like you do. But when I came to Auburn, that's when the Braves, Dale Murphy was there, and he was there for 40 years, I think. But they have been in the last 40 years, Bill. Is there a more consistent Major League Baseball franchise? They're what the 49ers were in football for about 20 years when the DeBartolo family ran them.
Oh, yeah. And there has, the closest thing would have been, I guess, the Yankees from the 30s and 40s up into the 70s. But in modern history, the Braves are the team you can count on just year in and year out. They're going to be there in the postseason.
All right, getting some text in from a listener down in Fort Lauderdale. Auburn High defeats Opelika on a score with 30 seconds left last night. This rivalry game used to be played as the last game of the season. Damn. Yep. Soon, Auburn and Alabama will be played in September. I hope not. And he also said 306 homers. They tied the record. I thought they broke the record.
I thought they broke it too.
Yeah, we're going to find out.
Auburn Opelika. Yeah, there are a couple of reasons why the games moved up earlier. The Alabama High School Athletic Association had tried to make the last week of the regular season be a non-region week, so the teams wouldn't be, so you'd know where you were going, or either if you were hosting or if you were going on the road in the postseason. So they tried to make that last week a non-region game, and then for a few years until last year, Auburn and Opelika were in different classifications. Auburn was a 7A school, and as a matter of fact, the largest school in the state, and Opelika was was one of the largest 6A schools in the state. So when you had them as different classifications, they moved the game up to the middle of the season. I asked Scott Bagwell, the voice of Auburn High football last night, about the game now that Opelika has moved up to 7A, about playing the game this early in the year, because the intensity's always been there, but it didn't mean as much as far as postseason when they were playing 7A and 6A. Now it does. And he said, he'd love to get it back at least their game 9, if not game 10. But that's the reason it moved up. It's funny. We were talking about that, and then got a couple of calls yesterday from fans saying, hey, they like this Georgia game being early now and separated from the Alabama game. If you're going to have to play them both either at home or on the road, it just makes more sense to be playing them, more separate, so you don't have that amen corner, which is so brutal at the end.
Yeah, and you would hope that in 2012, when A&M and Missouri came into the SEC, Auburn played Georgia 12 and 13 back-to-back in Auburn. Bama, and it used to be, you had one at home, one on the road. I think the majority of Auburn fans that I know, and we both know a lot of them, would like to see it to where you've got Bama at home one year, Georgia on the road. That part of it's tough. But one thing we learned, and I knew this and you knew it, when they said, well, okay, we'll move it around, what do they replace it with? A&M or LSU? I mean, there's nowhere to hide in the SEC. And now you're bringing in Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's going to be tough, but I'm really looking forward to the addition of the two teams, and hoping we go to a 9-game conference schedule. I really do. I mean, I want to keep Georgia on the schedule. I want Alabama, Tennessee to stay. I want Texas wouldn't be able to play Oklahoma and Texas A&M if you only went to an 8-game schedule. So I'm hoping it goes to 9. And the good thing is, whether it's 8 or 9, it's going to be more fair for everybody, because you're going to play everybody in the conference at least twice over 4 years.
Yeah, and that's the number one thing is Georgia, I don't believe, has ever played in College Station, have they?
No, they haven't.
I didn't think so. Okay, so Jim in Little Rock, Major League Baseball is doing the right things now. Love it. I mean, 332 games in the 22 baseball season, lasted 3.5 hours. This year, only 4. And there were a lot of them. I remember seeing some like 2 hours and 38 minutes.
Oh yeah. A lot of quick games. So that's good. And that's the thing. The pace of the game was so slow that if you weren't a baseball purist, if you weren't a hardcore baseball fan, it was tough to stay engaged. So I think great moves by Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Bill, if you can stay about, another 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to bring Nathan Perotti on. Nathan graduated from Arkansas last year, was a walk-on special team player from out in Austin. I think went to Westlake. He's going to get mad at me if I get it wrong, but we had him on last year. Dave Cody, friend of mine, I've known 40 years, was a sportscaster out there for a long time at Channel 7 in Austin, covered all these guys. And Dave's out in Bellingham, Washington now, and listeners and watch the show every day.
That, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And Phil Snow and Jim Fife are his mentors, so That's pretty damn good ones. And you're mine in radio. Bottom line, and I always give you credit when we tag out every day on the show. I'll say, Jim would say, our time is up. We thank you for yours. Yours is we're out of here. Or on Tuesdays, my favorite is Leonard Skinner's Tuesday's Gone. And it's Simple Man is Freebird. I don't know which is the best. Pretty much anything they put out. It's like anything Gordon Ramsay puts on the table, it's going to be pretty good. But I want to ask you real quick, Hugh Freeze, and everybody up here in Memphis knows him. He's very popular. He's very, and I always thought he'd be the perfect fit for Auburn. Do you feel that way? And you feel like he's working and got the program going in the right? Look, I hate losing, but I remember what Pat Dye said in 1982. We talked about it the other day, 1914, Georgia won. He goes, I didn't have a speech prepared for losing. I don't know what to say, but, y'all keep fighting like that. And 2 weeks later, they broke the streak against Bama. Not saying he's Pat Dye. He's different. They're all different. But I hate losing. But, man, considering what he's dealing with, I like the direction he's got Auburn going.
Well, yeah, there's no question, and you could see it last week following the loss, and it was, Auburn played so hard, and they were there tied with 6 minutes to go in the game, and following the game, you could see the tears from the players. You could hear it and see it from Coach Freeze. I mean, it really hurt them. They knew they had a chance, and that's something that the last couple of years they really haven't had those opportunities. They haven't had those chances. I also remember Coach Dye talking about you go from losing big to losing close to winning big. And, you hate to do that. You'd love to just jump to winning big.
Yeah.
But Auburn is close, and they're close with a roster that's nowhere matching up to either of the last two teams they've played or the next team that they've got this next week in Baton Rouge.
Yeah. Well, one more thing before we go to Nathan Perotti. We're going to talk some more SEC football, but you had, I asked you, did you archive all those years of weekly segments with Coach Dye, brought to you by Kia of Auburn? Can you get a spelling on the Auburn?
Hey, that's the old South way of saying it.
Damn right it is.
When I first came here, that's exactly what I heard. I wish we had. I thought that they were saved for a while, but yeah, you talk about missing something, really missing our weekly visit. And he'd come in. The best part wasn't what was on the air. The best part was when he'd just sit there and give you some thoughts about life and Japanese maples.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something funny. One more thing. Jackie Sherrill, we've had him on the show the last couple of years, about 6 times. And it's the conversations after you're on the air,
right,
that are just,
once you get to know them a little bit.
Wow. And they can tell a story. Hey, Nathan Perotti joins us right now. Nathan was Bill Cameron, ESPN 106.7 in Auburn. I'm over here in Parkin, Arkansas, Cross County, about 30 miles from Memphis. It's getting close to duck season, so every weekend we're working. Today we're counting decoys. And let me give a shout out real quick. One of our members, Paul Peoples, he is turning on the website, folks, Monday up there. He lives in Toney, Alabama, right next to Huntsville. He's got an Auburn engineer working with him. Chatter ducks. I've never seen anything like it. I've duck hunted 1,400 times. I've never seen anything like chatter ducks. I know they've got them at Max Prairie Wings in Stuttgart. Chatter ducks. Look it up on the website, chatterducks.com. Nathan, you played for the Hogs. Dave Cody introduced me to you last year. Bill was just out in College Station to watch Auburn play a couple of weeks ago. It was 170 degrees. Did you go to Westlake High School?
I went to the rival school, Lake Travis.
I knew it. It's like telling Billy when his kids went to Opelika High School versus Auburn, but you went to Lake Travis. Okay, let's talk about, you played 2 years with Chad Morris, 2 years with Sam Pittman. Go back, because Sam Pittman's, he needs help right now. His team needs help. You're a Razorback. You're the guy that I talk about when I talk about what NIL is. The guy, if I'm an employer, which, we hire people, and I'm talking to a kid and I say, you walked on, yes, sir, 4 years, 5 years, yes, sir. You didn't miss any practice, yes, sir. Didn't stay in trouble, yes. Got your degree, yes. And did whatever they asked you to do, yeah. When can you start? That's what NIL is to me. You're a lifelong Razorback. You can come back in the state of Arkansas. I'm over here a lot. I live in Memphis, but I'm in Arkansas. It seems like more than I am in Tennessee. You got NIL because you paid the price. Let's talk about Sam Pittman, what they're going through right now. These are your teammates and all. They got a big game. They're all big tonight at Ole Miss.
They do have a big game tonight, and I'm hoping we can make a lot of adjustments because we need it in the since the first games of the season. But what I'm seeing right now, I mean, from what I'm hearing just from my teammates is that the chemistry and camaraderie it's there in the locker room. The morale isn't super low or anything. They're going to this game pretty confident that they've made a lot of adjustments and they're ready to fight like they are every weekend. But I mean, from what I've seen, I think the O-line is the biggest concern to me.
Yeah.
I do think the play calling has been very, if I could put it politely, suspect or questionable.
Yeah.
I won't go too much further on that, but I
Sure.
do think largely the O-line, and I've spoken to some of my teammates that are still on the team and are on the O-line and said they're making huge adjustments for Ole Miss. We'll see how that goes. But right now, it's just O-line's killing them. Penalties are killing them. It's just sloppy gameplay. We've got to be one of the most penalized teams in the country, and you're not going to win very many games when you're have one drive, a potential game-winning drive, and you have 45 yards of holding penalties in a single drive. So just overall sloppiness. I don't know if it's discipline issues or if it's coaching or what it is, but you got a good Ole Miss team coming to town, and it's going to be a tough one. Or sorry, going to Ole Miss, I guess, but. That's a good team, electric offense. Defense is going to have to show up. The defense has looked okay to me, but they're going to have to make a lot of adjustments if they want to keep up with this Ole Miss team.
Yeah. Bill, jump in here.
Yeah, Nathan, the thing that's been so, it's hard to understand is just the inconsistencies. I mean, you would think that that Arkansas would, after a few years with Coach Pittman, that things would be moving along. But I know new coordinators make a difference. How do you feel? I mean, you sound like you feel pretty pleased with the talent that's there. I mean, so do you think maybe it's still just adjusting to the new system or something? Because it's been really good one time, and then you'll see a couple of drives where things don't go well. This is an Ole Miss team, though, that who knows which Ole Miss team we're going to see. Are we going to see the one that kept shooting themselves in the foot a couple of weeks ago in Tuscaloosa, or the one that just couldn't be stopped? We'll find out a little more about that when LSU goes to Missouri today as well. But that to me is the craziest thing about this whole league this year is you don't know from one week to the next what you're going to get out of most teams, but Arkansas is right there at the top.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, yes, like you said earlier, I think Arkansas has the talent to play with anybody in the country. I really do. They've been like that for years. They've always been a team that can go in there and give Alabama a fight or run for their money. They can beat LSU on any night. But just the same, on the opposite end, they can lose to anybody on any given night. So, I mean, Arkansas can come in there, and I would not be surprised if we beat Ole Miss, just because, I know how Arkansas players feel about Ole Miss. They do not like Ole Miss. They don't like that program. They want to be guys pretty much more than anybody. And Ole Miss feels the same about Arkansas. It's going to be a dogfight either way. But, they could come out there and shock the country. I've seen Arkansas do it many times where they just, I don't know, they're dialed in. They come in one day. They're tired of losing. They get back-to-back losses, and they need to win. They give them a dogfight and come out on top. Or they can go in there and look down, not prepared, and get slapped around. It can go both ways. I think it will be a close game either way. But yeah, they're going to have some huge adjustments. I don't know what that will be. I do think that from what I've seen from the offensive coordinating standpoint, and I don't know how much of that is Pittman versus how much of that is the coordinator Enos, but it's been very questionable, and I mean, it is his first year, and so I can't be too harsh on it, but I'd like to see some improvement there because it's been very questionable, and you're just not going to win games like that, and the penalties too is huge. Just own kidney. I mean, you're just losing games yourself at that point. They got to get dialed in with the penalties for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, Bill and I both, Bill, we know Marcus Woodson, Travis Williams from their time at Auburn, two damn good coaches. Marcus, Bill, wouldn't you agree? Not only is he a great recruiter, I think he's an excellent developer of talent. I mean, look what he did with Noah Igbenogany from Hewitt-Trussville, turned him in from a wide receiver to a first-round draft pick for the Dolphins. But, what have you seen different about the defense, because Travis mentored, was he with 5 years with Kevin Steele, who I think is a great coordinator. But I think, Nathan, I think you would probably love playing in that kind of defense.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's just one of those type of deals. And I'm looking like, what Bill's asking you. Here's Robert in Forest City, Arkansas. Hogs have talent, simple works. You read a comment like that. Here you are in the 6th game of the season. Is it hard to change? Are you pretty much who you are by now?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think right now, they still have time to become bowl eligible. They still have time to turn their season around. I mean, they have an absolute gauntlet of a schedule, just like they do every. But I mean, I've seen it happen before. I mean, teams can come together midway through the season. They can have a mid-season crisis and really rally together and completely change the season around. I mean, those losses on the stat sheet aren't going away, but you don't have to increase the number. You can turn a season around for sure. And what's that's going to take is really, I think tonight is a huge game. If they lose that game, I could see the locker room kind of breaking a little bit, kind of the morale going down, and losing tonight might cost an extra 1 or 2 losses down the road just because of tonight. Yeah. What you can't let happen is one loss lead to 2 or 3. You can't let it snowball into multiple losses. But I like, again, I said before, I think it's going to be a dogfight today. I would not be surprised if Arkansas came out there and won. They have the talent. They always do. It just comes down if they're going to execute and if they're going to show up to play. But they cannot let this game affect the rest of their season. If they lose, they can't let it snowball. They can't have 3 or 4 or 5 losses in a row, or else I think they'll probably just quit on the season there. And not to say there are a bunch of quitters there. I'm just saying you get 4 or 5 losses, and it's hard to come back at that point. 3-loss team, I think it's not too bad. Their season's still ahead of them, and they have time to make some changes and turn their season around. It's not too late quite yet.
Nathan, let me ask you something. I mean, one thing that is so much different now than it was just a couple of years ago is the transfer portal. And what you have to worry about, what everybody worries about, is if their team starts a slide or something like that, players deciding, well, it's time to go, even though they may not be able to officially enter the transfer portal. You've got to worry about that, and you've got to be trying to keep your team together, while you're trying to avoid a slide.
Yeah. I mean, college football is basically NFL free agency now, and there's not real, I guess, compared to 10 years ago, the commitment is not nearly the same. When you sign that document and go to a school, and you're committed to that school, but now it's like, okay, well, I didn't play my redshirt freshman year, or my true freshman year rather. I'm gonna go get $100,000 from an NIL deal at this other school. And everybody's kind of, and not everybody, but a lot of kids in the portal these days are just jumping around the portal, trying to get NIL money, trying to better themselves, put themselves in the best situation they can, which I don't blame them all. I'm all for people getting paid, players getting paid. But it is completely different in a locker room now,
Right.
I graduated when, like, the first year NIL started. It hadn't really kicked up and gone crazy yet. Right when I left, people started really getting some money and doing some crazy deals, which all power to them. But it definitely is a different feel in the locker room. Whereas you have that bond, that team chemistry with everybody. You're just all trying to go through hell together, try to get some wins, get to the playoffs, win a chip. And now it's kind of more geared towards how much money can I make, what can I do for myself, and that, I mean, naturally that comes with just the way NIL is set up here. But I mean, there's not as much loyalty to programs, and players aren't sticking around for the long run. What I'm seeing right now is a lot of, if stuff isn't going your way within the first year or two that you're there, there's another opportunity elsewhere, and so people will just jump ship. And the grass isn't always greener on the other side too. I think a lot of players realize that once they leave as well. I mean, sometimes your situation isn't great where you're at, and it's better on the other side. But I've seen a lot of kids go get some money, take an NIL deal, and are in a worse situation than they were if they would have just stayed at the same spot. But I do think the NIL deal is taking a big toll on the locker room camaraderie and chemistry and just the overall mindset of locker rooms and the team.
Well, I mean, Bill, that is a great question. And Nathan, love your answer because I've got
Right.
kids your age, 23, 25. My daughters are 27 and 34. I remarried. My oldest one's an Alabama grad. She's still a good person. And we can even watch the Iron Bowl together, Bill. And I don't hunt with my friends that are Alabama fans. We don't hunt with each other. No duck hunting on that day. But Nathan, you are.
I thought you were worried about safety.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Nathan, what are you, 24?
24, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. I want to give you a compliment. I try to tell people this. My kids always tell me, Wilson's 25. She graduated from Auburn the same year you did, in May of 22. He said, Dad, the kids today ain't the problem. He says, the parents. He said, and I said, you're right. I think y'all are an awesome generation because I was raised with St. John Paul II, Ronald Reagan. I think y'all are an awesome. I know Bill's two kids, Matt and Scott. I mean, you and Kathy, you got double. If I had 3 thumbs, I'd give you 3 thumbs up. So I ain't buying this narrative. And I think I talked to Kingsley Egonquin, the starting center for Florida at SEC Media Days. And I asked him, I'm not saying anything off the record because I would never do that. But I asked him right there in front of everybody about NIL. And he goes, look, he said, I'm a Florida Gator. He goes, I put 4 years of my life or whatever here, and he said this. I've got it here on tape. He goes, leaving to go to another school for, a couple $100,000. I mean, it looks great. He goes, it's kind of silly. He goes, and because I said, aren't you remembered by the guys that you fought your ass off with and you form a bond? I mean, and this, Nathan, in my experience with people, volunteer coaching, whatever, 600 kids over the years, cross country, track and field, they say, Coach, you were sadistic, almost cruel, but you used to tell us if we quit out here because this is too tough, we're going to quit everything tough in our lives. You remember the coaches that did that, but you don't remember the names of the ones who let you slide, do you? I'm just going to leave it at that, but I want your answer.
No, for sure. I completely agree. And like you said, going through hell, dealing with adversity, that brings people together. And, when you realize the only way to go through a brick wall is to run through it, you can't turn around the other way. You can't jump over whatever. A lot of people are choosing the easy way, in my opinion. But like I said, I don't blame them too. When you're getting a lot of money thrown offered to you, it's hard as a 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kid to not take that, not accept that. You know, it's a life-changing deal there. But yeah, I do think that it's different than it was. The NIL has definitely changed in the NCAA and just in so many ways. But I do think that and there are some programs that are still very close knit and just win mentality, and they're the team first mentality. It's not everybody, but I'd say it's spread throughout locker rooms pretty bad right now. And I think a part of that too is NIL came up not very regulated. They kind of just dropped it in and didn't have very
right.
It just kind of went wild with it. I think they're starting to rein it in slowly and start to put some regulations in there and where it makes sense. But that'll probably take a few years to really narrow it, because it's a hard thing to kind of get down the way. It's not easy to balance it. But I think overall it's good for the players but bad for the sport.
Yeah, I agree. And Bill, remember what Gene Chizik said before it came out? He said, look, in the NFL, you go in that locker room, it's paycheck to paycheck, Guy acts up, fine me $25,000. I don't care. Well, they should, because I manage people's money for a living on top of doing this show 6 days a week, Nathan. We've never had a family in 32 years and counting ever give out $10, $20 million to their 18, 19-year-old kids. Age-banded trust and incentive-based trust. You've got your NIL, though. You got your degree from – what's your degree from at Arkansas? And I'll let you go. But what is it in?
Oh, yeah, business management.
So you went to the Walton College of Business.
Yes,
I think that's going to help you a lot in life. Plus, you've got a great work ethic. Look, Nathan, thanks for joining us. And Bill, if you can stay with us, I'm going to let you go, Nathan. We got to get you back on here in a couple of weeks when you can be on a Saturday. Love your perspective as a student athlete. Again, time and time again, Bill, you know this from talking to guys down there at Auburn. I don't know where these bad guys are, because the people we're bringing on this show from different schools are great examples of why we love college athletics. And you're one of them. Lake Travis, not Westlake. I insulted you. It's like telling the Christian Brothers guy who went to MUS. I may get punched for that one, but thanks for taking time to join us, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate it. It's always a blast coming on here, and I look forward to coming on again. I come so I appreciate it.
Come back on in a couple of weeks, and we'll be a bunch of people are going to be coming over here to the lodge today, calling the hogs over here. Trust me, it'll be fun. But Bill, hang on with us. I'll let Nathan go. We're going to take a break. If you can come back for just a couple more minutes, we're going to take a quick break here on Sidelines on this Saturday morning edition. College football, it's in the air. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4 City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Rob Brown back here with you. Great stuff. Bill, I mean, you get a chance, and I know you got to go just a couple more minutes. I'm getting a lot of compliments from people. These are people that grew up in Auburn and Opelika, went to Lee Scott, some of them Auburn High School, some listeners down in Fort Lauderdale, viewers, whatever, going, Cameron is a man of substance. And I said, well, he got like a 1560 on his SAT and turned down a full scholarship to Stanford, growing up in Flomaton, to come to Auburn.
Yeah, well, that shows I didn't have a lot of sense, though.
Bill, you are one of the smartest people I know. You and Mark Murphy and Paul Ellen. You know Paul Ellen. That's another one of the broadcasters that I absolutely love. The Dixie Crystal Sugar Scoreboard, now the Auburn Studios, whatever. But he's just a mainstay. He's, this whole group of people. You grew up listening to the Yankees, probably, or watching them growing up in Flomaton.
Yeah, couldn't listen to him very well on AM radio back in the day.
Not then, but growing up,
they were the game of the week most Saturdays, though. So yeah.
Chuck Oliver. It's funny. A couple of years ago, he goes, you were a senior at Weagle when I was a freshman, and he said, we used to talk a lot, and it was funny because he's got his show Southern Sports Today up in Atlanta, and he made a comment recently. It was so funny about when the Braves play these road games. He's just Braves fans everywhere, and he calls them the TBS kids. Think about what we used to come home to. Harry Carey here with Steve Stone. I want to say hello to all the shut-ins and the nuns at St. Cecilia's Convent down in Springfield, Illinois. I mean, that was awesome. And then Ernie Johnson, Pete Van Wieren, Skip Carey, and the Braves. Is there, and I got to ask you this before you go, because Kevin Scarbinsky is going to be on with us here in just a minute. And is there a better game to watch in person than Major League Baseball or college baseball, Bill? Because I don't think there is, because when I'm at a football game, when I was at the Auburn game last week, my stomach is up here the entire time. Not really, but feels like it.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on the season. I mean, I love being at whatever I can, football, basketball, baseball. I mean, it's that they're all great to view there in person. They're so much better. Baseball is probably the best game. It's made more for radio. I mean, if you're going to listen to a game on radio, I think baseball is the best one, because you get time for the color announcers to really spin their stories and things like that. Basketball, the color announcer's got to be the quickest guy in the world. Football, you want somebody who really knows his stuff. So it's a little different the way all three of them go. Kevin, how you doing, man?
Hey, Bill, good to see you. Good morning. Good morning, Rob.
Hey, man, good having you on here. It finally feels like fall. It's 47 degrees up here this morning. It's beautiful, man. I mean, we've been talking about the Braves. We just had Nathan Perotti on.
Wait. Time out. I'm throwing a flag right here. Look behind me. Look behind me.
I see it.
It's not a Braves hat. That's not the Braves mascot. That is the Philly Fanatic, and that is a Phillies hat, one of my son's Phillies hats. So we are pulling for the other side. When you grow up in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, 90 miles from Philadelphia, you are not pulling for the Braves. You are all in on the Phillies.
And that is, and they were talking, it was funny hearing Braves fans saying, you had this great season and you get to open up against the Phillies. But I think Bill, along the line of what Kevin
today is huge. Today is huge, Kevin. If Suarez, isn't it Suarez is going, if they can knock off Spencer Strider in game one and have Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola down the line, this would be bad news for Braves fans.
Yeah, the pitching sets up much better for the Braves. Obviously, the Phillies having to win that wild card series, and they got great performances out of Wheeler and Nola in those two games. So, it's advantage Braves from that standpoint. And obviously, the Braves had a superior regular season, but everyone remembers what happened last year in the postseason. And we all know what happened to the Braves. If you go back, that was one of the greatest experiences of my career. I got to cover the Braves for most of that long playoff run. Started in 91 against the Pirates in the NLCS. I went through 2000, covered every postseason game of the Braves home and away. And we know that as great as they were year in and year out, they just only got it done once to win the World Series. So there's got to be a little trepidation, I would think, on the part of the Braves and certainly on Braves fans going into the series.
Yeah, it is going to be, and it's going to be competing tonight with, Kentucky and Georgia. But like Billy said, that's why everybody has a lot of TVs, and you go to the Battery Social, and some of those bars have 80 giant TVs in there. Bill and Kevin, both of y'all, and Bill, I know we kept you long, but Bill's my mentor in radio, Kevin. I mean, we were laughing the other day talking. I've known him since '79. He was one of those original guys that kept up with all the recruiting. He'd have Max Emfinger on and, all the different people about it. And then you came along, Kevin, and it just exploded and all. I want to get, throw it to you, Bill, and then Kevin, where we are right now in terms of fan interest. What I saw in Auburn the other day looked like a Billy Graham tent revival, man, on Friday night, prime time. There was 90,000 in the stadium. And all week long, I kept saying, I don't care what the line is. I don't think 90,000 people are going to cram into Jordan-Hare Stadium going, I know we're going to lose. We don't have a chance. I can't wait to get there. And another 50 or 60,000 on the outside. And what I saw, again, just keeps reminding me, no matter what anybody says, the fans own college football, and y'all are right. Tony Barnhart said it. Not even the adults can mess it up, guys.
Well, there are a couple of things. And Kevin, I'd love your thoughts on this as well. I mean, everybody is always trying to find more ways to engage the fans. I mean, there are some programs, it gets to a point where it's the same old. I mean, if you win and win and win and win and win, then the fans come out and it's just sort of a social experience and they expect to win and they leave. We've heard Nick Saban, be upset with students for leaving, and they try to do whatever they can. When you're trying to get there, when the fan base, though, feels if you've been struggling and you're trying to get back there and they see some positive results, then they're going to come. I mean, that's sort of the easy part. It's like if you start moving in the right direction, you're building, then you're going to get that fan base is going to get excited. They're going to come out there. Now, it's getting to the top, maintaining, but the other thing is you also have athletic departments trying to find different ways. I loved it when we're out in College Station and they have refill stations for soft drinks and things like that, and you've got just ways, interactive things for fans to do, but it's all about the game. The game is still what the biggest draw is. So it's a fine line sort of trying to balance getting them into the stadium and then keeping them there.
Yeah, the game has to be paramount. The team has to be paramount. And one of the greatest motivators is hope. If your fan base has hope, especially, Bill, as you said, if you've struggled for some time and you haven't lived up to the expectations of your fan base, especially after you change coaches, if you give them some hope, and that's what that Georgia game did for Auburn, it gave them hope that, no, they're not there yet, and it's going to take some time. And Hugh Freeze, I applaud him for his honesty. It hasn't been coach speak. It hasn't been classic old school poor mouthing to suggest that it's going to take a few years to put the talent across the board or anywhere near the talent across the board that Alabama and Georgia do. But that game, and it also showed that Auburn has the best home field advantage in college football. I don't think there's any question about that. If you talk about what it does for that team, how it lifts them, doesn't affect the opponent as much. And Georgia, I don't believe, had any real noise penalties in that game.
No.
But it just lifts Auburn, and you can feel it. It's tangible. We've all felt it many, many times through the years, and certainly it happened again Saturday. But it is interesting, isn't it, that as they build new stadiums, for example, when they built Protective Stadium here in Birmingham, which is the home of UAB, where they're playing that amazing Children's Harbor game today, a great tradition started by Bill Clark.
Yeah,
they build stadiums now with the thought of how can we get people to the stadium and keep them there when they're not watching the game, when they're not interested in what's happening on the field, when they're at the concession stand, when they're walking around the concourse, when they're visiting with friends. How can we create spaces, friendly spaces for folks to enjoy the experience when they're not sitting in their seats glued to the action?
Other than having one of your players dating Taylor Swift, yes.
Yeah. That's a surefire
That'll do
attention getter, isn't it?
Oh my God. Where did Kelsey play college football?
I don't even know that.
Yeah, I wish you hadn't asked that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, all I know is this. This is the menu today over here at the Cherry Farm at our hunting camp: smoked barbecue bologna, pork hot links, bacon wrapped duck poppers, cheeseburger sliders, smoked beans, cold beer, Jack Daniels, Redmont vodka, Vulcan gin. That ain't a bad day.
That's a party right there.
Yeah, I got to get to the syrup stop in here pretty soon.
Yeah, Bill, before we let you go, tell us where you're going today, because this is what I love about where you live. I love all those towns around there, but you can't. Kevin, you'll know where he's going. Listen.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of things going on. It's funny. We've got an open date. The rodeo's going on tonight as well. I'm a little past those days, but the annual syrup sopping is going on in Lochapoka. It's really good. I mean, it's great crafts, but I mean, really good local food and fare. So that's just something that goes on every year here. And they always try to do it, when there's an open date so everybody can go.
Look, Bill, I love it. Tell people how they can follow you and keep up with you. Bill, you are the man. I mean, like I said, you talk about a Swiss Army knife, Kevin, you are too. Bill, lifelong Yankees fan. You're a Phillies fan. He's a Braves fan as well. But Bill, radio is the eyes and ears. There's just nothing better. But tell them how they can follow you, and we look forward to your next visit.
Yeah, we do a show called The Drive every day on ESPN 106.7. It's 4 to 6 every day, and you can listen online at either espnau.com or go to radioalabama.net and listen live or check out the podcast.
All right, Bill, look, love having you on here. It's an easy day. Have fun at the syrup sapping over in Lochapoka, not too far from Notasulga and Macedonia. not too far from Tallahassee as well. But thanks again for your time.
All right, guys. Good seeing both of you.
Good to see you, Bill.
Thank you. All right, let's bring on another one out here. Ken Capps is going to join us. He's at the State Fair out in Texas, and we got to get the audio. Ken, can you hear us? I think he's having some trouble with the audio. But Kevin, just what Bill was saying about that tonight's going to be unbelievable. Phillies, Braves in Atlanta, and you're a lifelong Philly. I remember when Mike Schmidt played. I was up in Radnor and Marple Newtown in like January of '82. Went up there to see it was around Christmas '81 going into '82. And those suburbs, man, it's nice up. God, it's really beautiful up there. People, it's a beautiful part of the country. And the countryside around there. Mike Schmidt was a god back then, and still is held in that regard up there. You're merging Major League Baseball playoffs with college football. It's hard to get better than this. It's like when you are in the spring and you've got the Masters going on and all that stuff. But real quick, and we're going to be talking with Ken here and you and all of us, but got to get your thoughts. Getting a lot of gig 'em Aggies, and I'm getting a lot of different opinions on this game today. What do you think is going to happen with Texas A&M hosting Alabama today?
Well, tell me how many sacks and tackles for loss the Texas A&M defense finishes with, and I'll tell you who wins the game. They have been so good up front, and that conversely, the weak spot for Alabama has been its offensive line. So that is a matchup to watch. It could be a matchup nightmare for Alabama. If it is, they're not going to win that game. And obviously, they're fortunate that Jalen Milroe has escapability, and he has the ability to hurt you if he breaks contain with his wheels. But they've got to keep him upright for the most part. They can't be operating in 2nd and 12, 3rd and 15, and expect to have much success against that Texas A&M defense. That's true against most defenses, but A&M puts you in 2nd and 12 and 3rd and 15 more than just about any defense in the country. I heard a great stat earlier today that A&M, their average third down that their defense faces is 3rd and 9.8, something like that. You're going to win some football games if your defense is consistently putting the other team in 3rd and 9+. And that's what they've got to do. And conversely, look, Max Johnson, he's done a wonderful job, but he's been prone to turning the ball over. The Alabama defense has started to look elite. And this game has a feel of, an old school, I don't want to say the game of the century, LSU 9, Alabama 6 from 2011.
In 12 innings? Yeah.
And that was overtime, yeah. They needed overtime to get to 9.
Yeah, they did.
To get that third field goal.
Yeah.
But this really does have the feel of a defensive struggle today. Very much unlike the 2013 game when A.J. McCarron and Alabama went in there and outdueled Johnny Football and the Aggies. Score was in the 40s. And then later that year when Gus Malzahn and Nick Marshall went in there with Auburn and the score was in the 40s. And that was the game that really told us something special was happening with that 2013 Auburn team. So, yeah, I think it all comes down to, can Alabama keep Jalen Milroe upright far more often than not?
Yeah. And another, looking at the games and last Saturday, and, again, you get some of the best commentary from people when you talk to them after the game, coaches, players, when as they walk out of, in that case, Jordan Hare, and you could just feel like they were mad that they were lost, but the fans are like going, hey, you ought to be grateful that Hugh Freeze took a bunch of, as people say, misfits and ragtags and, portal guys and everything, had them believing in themselves. But you keep believing. If you don't believe in what you're doing as a salesman, no one will ever buy from you. And it's the same thing with the coaches. And that's what I love. Ken Capps having some technical difficulties. He's out there at the Texas State Fair. We were doing this yesterday, so we'll try to get him back on. But here it is, Shoney and Valdosta. Kelsey played at Toledo. Wow. And his brother's pretty damn good too.
Yes, he is.
I know.
Yes, he is. He's a Super Bowl champion as well. Yeah.
Exactly. And so you think about, let's look at it. Mrs. Stoops. My son Bobby is the winningest coach ever at Oklahoma. My son Mark is the winningest coach ever at Kentucky. What do you think's going to happen tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern between the hedges? Georgia's first 4 games at home. They go on the road, tough place to play. They got the job done. Brock Bowers, my feeling was that game would go down to the fourth quarter. First team to blink loses. Well, Brock Bowers made them blink, and that's what happened. But what's going to happen, do you think, tonight up in Athens?
I think this game could be fascinating. I really do. I think this could be a 4-quarter game, more of a defensive struggle. What did Auburn do to Georgia? We talk about what that near miss did for Auburn. It'll be interesting to see what it did to and for Georgia. What was the line in dodgeball, Rob? Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Auburn made Georgia bleed its own blood a little bit in that game until Brock Bowers took over, and the best player in the country was the difference in the game in that fourth quarter. So Georgia can't be feeling overconfident, I wouldn't think. And then all they have to do is turn on the tape of the the Kentucky-Florida game and watch Florida's run defense getting shredded routinely by Kentucky. The one thing that gives me pause, though, in feeling like Kentucky will win the game is the uneven play of Devin Leary at quarterback for Kentucky. He has not been great this year. He's not been very good this year. He wasn't very good against Florida. He didn't have to be, the way they ran the ball. I don't think they can run the ball like that against Georgia. But if they can do anything, even a semblance of that, then I think they can stay in the game. This is one of those old school smash mouth kind of football games. I think that's what it's going to look like. We'll see if it turns out that way.
Yeah, Ben in Knoxville, Kentucky won't be able to run on Georgia. If you can't run in the NFL, like David Hager, who I think is one of my great friends, knows the NFL really well. He always says, if you can't run between the tackles as a running back in the NFL, you won't have a career. You probably won't even be drafted. That's the difference. Auburn ran, not so much between they ran a lot of everything. Kentucky likes to run right at you. I think that plays into Georgia's favor.
Yeah, and why Georgia is so aggressive on defense. They'll attack the mesh point on the read option. They'll crash down. That's why Peyton Thorne was able to pull the ball down and roll off that big run early in the game. And then he had some other nice runs as well. They weren't as concerned with him pulling and running as they were with the running backs getting off inside. So that matchup would seem to favor Georgia. But Kentucky, if they can create some creases, they can, that running back from that transfer from Vanderbilt, he was incredible. He looked like a combination of Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker, the way he ran all over Florida. Very, very unlikely he will do anything like that today against Georgia. But you don't have to run for 280 yards to win the game if you're Kentucky. You don't have to have one guy do that. If as a team you can run for 200 yards, you'll put yourself in a pretty good position, I would think, going into the fourth quarter.
Well, that's the problem with Vanderbilt, and that's one thing that could have helped if they had NIL or something to have kept him there. I don't know what Kentucky did, but you're right. He's terrific. And a correction from Shoney on Travis Kelce. I thought something wasn't right. Cincinnati, not Toledo. He played for the Bearcats. And by the way, we're at the hotel and conference center there in Auburn last Friday night, Mildred and I, and she had already fallen asleep. I went down to have a couple of road sodas. Everybody in that bar, everywhere is watching. You know what they're watching? Not Mama's Family. They were watching BYU in Cincinnati. It's pretty – I think, Kevin, in all this craziness, I'm seeing some – I'm going to find something good like you will in everything, okay? And I'm just – the interest, it's cool, BYU playing Cincinnati. That's interesting. When BYU came to Arkansas a few weeks ago, we kept talking about it. The 24 and 25-year-old guys on that line of BYU, because they do their 2-year mountain bike, the Mormon mission. I mean, there's a big difference in that. You've seen it toe to toe. I talked to Cadillac Williams, Audrey and I did after the game last week for about 10 minutes. Just love that guy. And all I told him was, I hope you know how much Auburn people appreciate what you did. And I can't even tell you in words. And then Audrey said something to him. Hey, she goes, my wife is a body language expert, psychology, master's in elementary ed. She goes, they just needed to be told they're loved. And people, what do you mean by that? Well, I'll just say this. I don't like baked potatoes as much as I used to because of the Harsin experience. I'm a sweet potato guy. By the way, I was looking at some stats on, I think we ought to all be growing sweet potatoes, 8,000 acres, netting you something like $25 million. Everybody wants sweet potatoes. That's pretty good. But isn't it cool when, and we're going to take a break here, but just after that game, were you there in the locker room getting some interviews and all afterwards?
No, I was not in Auburn on Saturday. I was watching. That's one of the things now, because I try to keep a finger on the pulse of Auburn and Alabama and the rest of the SEC, et cetera. So generally, I'm at my home command center. Watching multiple games.
Well, you got to come down and tailgate with us.
And then now throw in, as you said, the baseball playoffs.
God.
Yeah, I got to be able to put some focus on the Phillies and the Braves.
You're right. But when you come down there, you got to come tailgate with us. We were right there by the Tiger tailgate, and it was funny when Charles Barkley came off of there. It's just a mob scene. It's just crazy, and everybody comes in and out of that right there where we are. But there's nothing like college football Saturday. And Kevin, what you're doing with your writing, real quick before we bring Ken on, and you're going to be with us here for another hour, but just let people know directly how they can sign up for your deal. You've got living brain donors like me sometimes that have trouble with passwords and all, but I'll send you money in a heartbeat. I want to support what you're doing because it's saving the game. The more people read from the great writers like you and Ken Capps and Bo Carter and all, it makes us love the game more. But let them know before we bring Ken on from Big Tex.
Sure. Thanks, Rob. The best way to keep up with all of the different things that I'm doing is follow me on X/Twitter at Kevin Scarbinsky. And I do write a weekly column in the Birmingham Lead, and Lead is spelled LEDE. You can go to birminghamlead.com to subscribe. It's a daily newspaper thrown into your inbox. We have shifted my column from Sundays to Mondays.
Okay.
So look for that. And then every Thursday I have a newsletter, Scarbo Knows, and that is a subscription product as well, $5 a month. A lot of stuff. It's basically about 4 different columns in one every Thursday on 4 different topics. So you can go to al.com/sports. You'll find a teaser there every Thursday morning, and also a link to how you can subscribe to the newsletter yourself. And if you subscribe to the newsletter, you get everything I write for the Lead as well.
Yeah. Well, it's cost is only an issue in the absence of any added value, and you get a boatload of value. And I love the fact that, again, you want to see what happens when a city gets behind a school like UAB. I love how you stay on top of that. Love to get Bill Clark on the show. Anytime you want to bring him on, would love to hear from him, because what you're doing in Birmingham, Monday Morning Birmingham Quarterback Club, coachsafely.org, it is a synergy per capita. There is no greater football city in the world than Birmingham. And real quick, bring on Ken Capps. And let me say something about, if you were out and about today, looking to get a new car, truck, or SUV, or get your vehicle serviced, Red River Ford Toyota, Wynn, Arkansas, 45 minutes from Memphis. They've got all your vehicle needs. Rusty Howard, Greg Smith, the whole sales force, Justin Wynn, general manager. That is the Red River Auto Group. John Dobbs Jr. from Memphis. Dobbs family's been in the car and truck business a long time, and the Ward family, great people. Wynn, Arkansas, RedRiverFordToyota.com. They deliver anywhere. And now let's head to the Texas State Fair. Looks like we're in the is that the hog or the hog judging, or is that guessing people's weight? Do we have the bearded woman, the 5-legged goat? What do we got there, Ken?
Well, I've been having trouble with getting on the internet, so but I'm glad I'm with you now. But I tried to find a quiet place here at the State Fair, about 100 yards from the Cotton Bowl, so I'm underneath the hot tub tent where they're selling hot tubs. So if you guys need look, I'm gonna turn around here just for a minute.
Look at there! Wow,
well, that's a good looking hot tub right there.
Absolutely.
So so I'm gonna be holed up here for a few minutes. At 6 o'clock this morning we got out here. Already people waiting in line to get in. You're going to have 92,000 people in that stadium in 2 hours, plus about another 50 or 60,000 out here at the Great State Fair of Texas. It's about 150,000 people crammed in here, and it's just it's the most incredible atmosphere, guys. You know this. 119th meeting of the rivalry in the last few years. Check this out. The record is 33, 3 as of right now in the last 60 however many years. So somebody's going to break that record today and put their school over the top for that 34th win and put them ahead in the series. Texas leads the all-time series by 15, 17 games, something like that. But here in the latest, it's been all OU here in the last in this century. 16 out of 23 meetings, and so you got 2 5-0 teams today, and I think it's just going to be a barn burner.
I do too. And Greg Sankey is going to be there. I wonder if they'll announce Commissioner Sankey is there, what kind of reception he'll get from the crowd, Kevin.
I imagine he will try to keep a low profile publicly today, but it is fascinating. It's going to be so much fun when this is an SEC conference game going forward, when they seem to meet. It's great to see what Steve Sarkisian's done at Texas. Obviously, this is his best team, and they look so far like a legitimate national championship contender. And the big leap forward for Oklahoma under Brent Venables in his second season, and that's usually when you can tell, especially about coaches that go on to be elite, that win national championships. What do they do from year 1 to year 2? How much improvement do they make? And you're really seeing it from Oklahoma this year.
Ken, along those lines, that stat that you gave about it, 33 wins to 33 wins, that's since 1955. And a lot of people will tell you that that's the modern era of college football because, after World War II and really in the 50s is when it really, really took off. But here's a question, Scott in Memphis. For Ken, what's the most unusual food you've seen fried at the Texas State Fair?
What's not fried? We fry everything. We fry everything here. I tell you, my favorite is I love the fried Oreos. Those are the best. But this year they're frying up Fireball whiskey, believe it or not. So I think that's the most unusual thing. I won't be partaking of any of that, but I heard that was one of the new additions to the fried food deal. And I wanted to make another point that I heard the other day, and you guys will both appreciate this. We love Texas OU. This is my however many consecutive games since 1978, and I was talking about it with the guy in the SEC, and he said, "Well, buckle up, Ken. When you get to the SEC, every weekend is Texas OU weekend." And so I don't know if I can handle 12 or 13 of these.
Get ready, Kevin. You know what he's talking about.
Yeah, you could if you wrapped the State Fair around a lot of SEC games, it would have that same Texas OU feel there in Dallas. So it's that's again just another great addition to the SEC, adding that rivalry, that game, that weekend. I imagine that's going to be, and it is for me, and I've never had the privilege to be there. I've been to games at Texas and Oklahoma, but I've never been to the game there at the Cotton Bowl. I've been to the Cotton Bowl, but never to that game. So I imagine a lot of SEC folks are going to put that on their bucket list. Oh,
definitely. Well, and the thing is, this has been one of our most hot summers. I think it's the third hottest summer on record in Dallas. And this morning it's in the 50s, and at game time it's going to be in the 60s. And this is like the best college football weather you could ever ask for. And of course, what people really love about they'll have it on ABC here in a few minutes. They split that stadium right down the middle. So at the 50-yard line, you've got one side Texas, one side Oklahoma. And so if you're lucky enough to have 50-yard line tickets, that's the good news. The bad news is your butt may be parked right next to a Sooner fan who also has 50-yard line tickets right there beside you. So it's just an amazing, amazing atmosphere. And, the big difference is going to be this year, guys, is that Oklahoma has a quarterback. I mean, Dylan Gabriel is playing lights out. And of course, Quinn Ewers of Texas has also been playing well. Ewers has one interception. I think Gabriel has two through 5 games. And so they're really handling the ball well. But it's going to be up to the defenses, I think, because these are two high-powered offenses that are going to get after each other. And of course, Texas is also, as you've seen all year, is a second half team. So it's going to be interesting what that score is going to be at halftime, because if Oklahoma jumps out early, which they're certainly capable of doing, it may be hard for Texas to catch up.
Yeah. And, David and Dallas ain't nothing like the Red River rivalry. Kevin, let's think about that. The Egg Bowl, the Mississippi State Fair, put that around there. Around the Georgia, Florida, world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Could you imagine a live Skinner 38 special concert open to the public outside of the Gator Bowl? I mean, opening up with Simple Man and Sweet Home Alabama.
Oh.
And one of the greatest songs they ever did, Ooh, That Smell. Somebody, by the way, sent a picture late last night. MJ and I were up watching the color TV through the neighbors' windows because y'all know how damn expensive cable is. So we were looking across the street with a telescope. And so anyway, this picture comes in, 1974, live at Liberty Bowl Stadium in Memphis.
There you go.
Leonard Skinner and Foghat. And you could just
Foghat, man.
Hey, in 75 or 76, I think it was, the Rolling Stones came to the Liberty Bowl for a concert. And several months later, they had to rip up all of the grass from the field because so much weed seed had been dropped in there. It looked like the Ole Miss marijuana complex. But, that's kind of – concerts back then were a lot different than they are now. I love this. From Maury Gaston, Sylacauga, lives in Mountain Brook. That's why they have the Texas State Fair the first weekend of October. The weather is always gorgeous. And just let me make you a little bit jealous here, Ken. I showed it to Kevin. On the menu today at the Cherry Farm, smoked barbecued bologna, pork hot links, bacon-wrapped duck poppers, cheeseburger sliders, smoked beans, Ham's beer, Jack Daniels, Redmont vodka, and Vulcan gin. And three big color TVs.
Well, all I've had so far today is one Krispy Kreme donut. So you're making me really hangry.
Yeah.
You got
not angry and hungry, hangry.
That is true. All right, let's look at some games around here, guys. Both of y'all elite national writers. You cover your Texas and you cover Auburn, but you know all these schools. I want to get your thoughts, Kevin, right now on the Florida situation. Buddy Martin's going to join us here in just a minute. Buddy Martin, the Buddy Martin Show. I love it when he gets on here. The Gators, I think they're going to have a top 5 recruiting class. Kevin, you went there for your master's. You got 2 sons in school there now. It's Vanderbilt today. People say, oh, that's not a big game. What did Coach Dye say one time on the show? Someone asked him, is this a big game, Coach? He goes, they're all big down here at Auburn. Try losing one.
Right.
And, that's Kevin. Your thoughts on the Gators, and then yours, Ken, because Ken, you're looking at these games just like we are.
Yeah, look, unless the bottom completely dropped out, Billy Napier's not on the hot seat in terms of losing his job this year. I don't believe, but this is an important game because they lost to Vanderbilt last year, and there is and it may be unfair to Vanderbilt and to Clark Lee and the nice things that they've done since he took over. But there's a stigma in this conference about losing to Vanderbilt. You remember Tommy Tuberville and Auburn lost to Vanderbilt in 2008. That was Tommy's last season at Auburn. And there's the history of that. You certainly don't want to lose to them 2 years in a row. You know, it's bad. Florida fans are feeling, you know, they're pretty upset that Kentucky has really surpassed Florida, has been a better program in the last handful of years. And that does not sit well with the Gators. And if Vanderbilt were to beat them for a second straight year, that would be problematic, shall we say. But I really think the key for the rest of the season is continue to show improvement in spots, keep that recruiting class together, built around quarterback DJ Lagway out of Texas. I think he threw 8 touchdown passes in a game in the last week or two. He is there. This is unfair to say this. I shouldn't even say this out loud. He could be there in a different way, the next Tebow for them. He's kind of the Pied Piper that other players want to play with. They are expecting great things from him. So this is a transition year in many ways, and they've made some improvement. Obviously, the Kentucky game was a big step backwards. So we'll see. And I think Billy has really got to. There's been some rumblings that after this year, he's got to seriously consider whether to hire an offensive coordinator rather than call plays himself.
Yeah, Ken. Again, you're looking from 40,000 feet up above, but you also dial down because you cover games. You go all over the place. I know, we were talking yesterday, Kevin. I said, I think a cool game for you to cover, come up here next Friday to Memphis and talk to Dr. Bill Hargrave in Memphis about what they're doing. They got a big home game against Tulane. And hey, you want to get into a big conference, a bigger conference, whatever, put 60,000 people in there regardless of who you're playing. But look what they're doing at SMU. They call that Dallas's team. I mean, do they call it the 214 or whatever? But look, they had a little 10-day fundraiser, shaking the tin can on the corner at SMU. They raised $150 million in 10 days. Why not go for 20 and get 300? I mean, but anyway, Ken, go ahead. Crazy.
Well, I was going to say they don't need to stand out on the street corner there at SMU.
Yes, that's right. Get your ascot on, Muffy.
Yeah, they got plenty of money, and yeah, they got to take care of their pony too that runs out on the field, Peruna, right. And but yeah, I mean, and we talked about this too. San Antonio's done the same thing. They've made the University of San Antonio's team. So whether you went there or not. And most people have not because it's a smaller school, but San Antonio has adopted UTSA as kind of their hometown college and who they root for. And I think Memphis can do the exact same thing if the Memphis civic folks and the convention people and the Chamber of Commerce and all those people worked with the university. I bet they could drum people out because I mean Memphis is it's like great basketball, and then you have that football. I think they need to look at some other examples around the country where that was really a smooth idea for SMU because I mean there are a lot of people in Dallas that had never set foot on the SMU campus, but now they're getting recruits even from inside of Dallas because they're saying, hey, we want to keep our local boys at home, and I think that's a brilliant move.
Yeah, they're in Highland Park, which is a lovely area of Dallas. All right, Artemis Pyle in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. The Swampers love Southern college football.
Amen.
By the way, Kevin and Ken, a little bit of trivia here, Savant Saturday. The Swampers are a sessions band. People go to record, and many times in Memphis over the years, it's crazy. I talked to my friend who's the head of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. He said, there's that song by the Rolling Stones, I met a gin-soaked bar queen down in Memphis. Well, Kevin Kane told me that Mick Jagger said they got the idea for that song at Ernestine and Hazel's, which is a popular night spot downtown on South Main. They have great sliders, great grease burgers. They make all night on the flat griddle. It's a great bar. He said they were in there during Cotton Carnival, and a bunch of the court was in there, and the girls' dresses were covered, soaked in gin and all, and that's where they got that idea. You never know who you're going to be seeing when you're in Memphis walking on the street. But another one, MJ in Collierville, Tennessee.
Hey, open that up for me.
Ken
Oh, look
and
at
Kevin,
guys.
why can't every Southern college football game in the South open up with Freebird? Well, I know one thing. There are a lot of weddings in the South that are done with Freebird. Kevin, looking at and talking to what he just said, look in Birmingham. Look what the city of Birmingham did with Protective Life Stadium. That's not, I don't believe it's all UAB people. I think it's a lot of Auburn and Alabama, Tennessee and Ole Miss, Birmingham Southern, Samford. Samford's got a lot of money over there on Lakeshore Drive. Let's talk about you again. You're in the command center today. You've got 7 TVs in there. You're communicating with people all over the place, but isn't it amazing what can happen? Wow, I'm looking at some really good food in the background with him. But isn't it amazing what can happen when a city decides to look inside themselves and say, you know what? Let's make our city great as a rising tide floats all boats. It's like if we were to suddenly lower interest rates 250 basis points, it'd be a big deal.
That's why UAB football is alive today, because Bill Clark rallied local business people who weren't by nature UAB fans, didn't necessarily go to school there, but they recognized the importance of that university as a whole to the city of Birmingham and the state of Alabama. UAB is the largest employer in the state. So many good things happen there as a university. And we all know that, you know, the athletic program is the front porch of the university. It's been proven time and again. And so those local business people, they were known as the Gang of Seven. They rallied, they raised money, they donated money. And that's why UAB has a beautiful new football operations center. And that's why Protective Stadium is one of the nicest additions to the skyline here in Birmingham we've had in a long time. Because people rallied of different fan bases for the greater civic good. Yeah.
Well, you know, I flew into Birmingham, you know, for the Texas-Alabama game there in Tuscaloosa. And yeah, I mean, UAB looks great. And I've covered UAB a lot back when they were in Conference USA. And yeah, Bill Clark was the man. But hey, I just wanted to tell you, I hope you guys saw what I just showed you. Here I am in the hot tub tent. Well, the hot tub folks have their own grill, and they're smoking up those ribs I just showed you. So I'm gonna have to run here, guys. But I just wanted to say, you guys have a great day in college football. Turn on ABC at 11 o'clock Central, and let's see at the end of this game who's going to end up the front runner for the CFP, because whoever wins this game is pretty certain, unless there's an upset, they're gonna win out and whoever wins today is probably has a very, very, very good chance of being in the CFP. That's either going to be Texas or Oklahoma. And boy, what a way to leave the Big 12 and come to the SEC, huh, guys?
Oh, I agree. And Ken, I'll be texting you during the game. I'll be watching it at 11 a.m. And I love seeing all that food on there, and unbelievable. Say hello to Big Tex, okay?
He's right down the street. I'll make sure and say hello to him. Love you guys. Hook 'em.
Ditto, thanks, man. Ken. Take care. I'll tell you what, man. Let's bring on bring the intern in here, William Halliday, sophomore, writing for the Auburn Plainsman, and get the lighting on here, William. You look like you're in the witness protection program, and yeah, there you go. But buddy, look, great time of the year. It's college football season is here, and getting that live report from out in Dallas at the Texas State Fair. And buddy, I threw this out there. I want to get your thoughts. What if they had an outdoor Skinnerd reunion, 38 special? God, I wish Tom Petty was still around, outside of the world's largest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville. I mean, that what's that environment like? Have you ever been to the Texas OU game, buddy, in Dallas, to the Texas State Fair?
Yes, I have. I've had their hot dogs. I've been there a couple of times. It's really good. It is no Georgia, Florida, Georgia. I'm sorry. I've been to both of them. So it's great, and it's better now than it ever was because they got some teams that they care about, and a team right now that is trending toward being the number one team in the country, according to Urban Meyer yesterday when I had him on the show. Texas is back, and that's good for the SEC. But right now, It's all about getting the job done week to week and playing Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
This is a new standard in Florida football. You don't want to lose to Vanderbilt 2 years in a row.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from 1955 to 2008, Auburn played Vanderbilt 14 times, beat them every time. 2008, they lost 14-13, and Tommy Tuberville got rid of his offensive coordinator the next day, and at the end of the season, he left. And then in 2012, Gene Chizik lost to Vanderbilt 17-13. He was not back the next year.
Mm-hmm.
That other weird trivia statistic is, if you're the Auburn head football coach, you do not lose to Ole Miss and Oxford. Pat Dye in 92, Tommy Tuberville in 08, Chizik in 2012, and Brian Harsin.
But who's counting?
Last year. Yeah, I do. But only an idiot savant would. But and William,
here's the deal. I'm going to get to it right now. So in case we got short of time. I made the mistake of writing in my column. It wasn't a mistake yesterday, talking about Billy Napier's got to learn the rules. You don't spit back in the face of a reporter. You don't talk. You don't say mean, ugly things back to them, because like the old saying used to be, never argue with the newspaper guy. He's got oil by the barrels, And so today, you can't do that when you've gotten your butt handed to you, and someone says, "Well, can you tell us about, your improvement? Which way you go?" And he says, "Well, you didn't ask me that question 2 weeks ago, Billy. 2 weeks, it don't matter. When you play like you played against Kentucky, you don't be asking questions back with questions and saying things like that." Bad look for Billy Napier, who I like a lot. So I wrote this column saying, well, here's the good news. It wasn't a disaster they lost to Kentucky. It was disappointing, but Vanderbilt will be another story. Urban said, hold on there. I disagree. I said, what do you mean? He said, it was a disaster. What do you mean? He said, anytime you lose a football game, it's a disaster. You cannot lose a game. His will is so strong. He was 16-2 against his rivals. And Kevin, you know this, against his rivals. 16-2.
And Florida's got a bunch of them.
Yeah, they got more than anybody in college football. And now we're making excuses about we didn't show up for Kentucky. I'm sorry, that's not good enough for Florida football, and it's not going to fly. I hope Billy learns better than that, because if he doesn't, it's going to be a rough trip for him.
Buddy, I'll be asked, I'm fascinated by the discussion about Billy's placid, almost comatose demeanor on the sidelines. And there's been a lot of discussion here this last week. The angry Nick Saban reappeared at Starkville last week, and Nick joked about it afterward. He said Miss Terry, who missed a game an Alabama game for the first time in their tenure there, he said she gave him permission to get after their butts. Mm-hmm. And the way he had been a kinder, gentler Nick Saban on the sideline this year. He went full Nick Saban in Starkville. What's the feeling there? Again, Billy, is you want your coach to be in control, and Trent Dilfer from UAB got out of control going after his assistants during the Tulane game. That went viral last week after a 12-minute on the field penalty. What's the feeling in Gainesville about Billy? Does he need to be more demonstrative, more emotional on the sideline? I know you got to be who you are, but what's the thought there?
Here's a little backstory. I read this last week, did not know this, according to a very good reporter who wrote it, that whenever Scott Strickland was looking for a coach, he wanted somebody who could endure the pressures of being Florida's coach. When you're firing coach every 2 or 3 years, you can't stop that. He was somebody who could be there for the long haul, someone whose demeanor would allow him to do that. Unfortunately, that gives the appearance that Billy has no sense of urgency. And Gator fans get mad at that, This is a tough crowd to work. About a third of them are people who get mad at you for wearing the wrong uniforms. You can't put, but there's another two 1/3 that are true Gator fans. They want results. They've seen this movie, and they've seen it in high definition with Steve Sperry and Urban Meyer. All right. So they know what good football is. And you gotta at least give the appearance. Yes, it's broken. Yes, we're going to fix it. Don't tell me it's my fault. I know it's your fault. You're the coach. Get it fixed. You can't have 13 people on the field at one time. You got 100 assistants. Find somebody to count bodies. That's how Gator fans are getting frustrated. We like Billy, think Billy's a good football coach, but he's got his, and I wrote in my column, sorry, Toto, this ain't Kansas no more. It's a different world. Yeah.
William, I want your thoughts on it, because, you're listening to two veteran two of the best sports writers in America. You're down there at Auburn. You had your first year there. Wasn't a lot of fun. You got rid of the potato head, but it's different. First off, you look at Florida. You've grown up lifelong Tennessee fan. Now you're in school at Auburn. You know all these schools and all. If you're looking at Florida and you lose to Kentucky, what does that say about where Florida is? I mean, I think talent-wise, they got a top 5 recruiting class. It's going to get better, but I'm with Buddy. You don't make excuses for not showing up. You have to be ready in every game. But what are your thoughts on all this? Make some sense out of it if that's possible.
Well, I honestly don't know where Florida's at just from an outside view because, I mean, you watch them against Tennessee and they put a pounding on them, and then you go lay an egg against Kentucky. I think that's just tells where Florida's at. I mean, I think they just it's just about when they show up, like what you're saying. Like you gotta show up at every game. You can't just expect to win, and you just gotta be prepared for it.
Yeah, and
it's well said, William. By the way, and I want to say to you and to Kevin, who knows this story, it's like the frog in the well. If you don't know that story, look it up. He keeps jumping up 5 feet and falling back 4. All right. So it takes him really a lot longer to get there. Florida's like that. They jumped up 5, fell back 4, maybe fell back 5. So it takes the process a lot. But that frog would have been fired 3 or 4 times before he got out of the well because they're not patient. They wait on that. And you can't regress. You can't say, okay, we got it fixed. Offensive line's good to go and go out and get your quarterback sacked 4 times. Can't happen. If you get it fixed, and don't make the stupid mistakes that you make when you have too many men on the field. 13 guys, and Davis scored anyway. It's a bad look for any coach, especially at University of Florida.
Kevin, I love the frog jumped up 5 times, but he fell back in 4. That's almost like the Darwin Awards. I remember reading about the guy in Egypt that went down a 50-foot well to save a chicken, and 6 other people went down to save him, and they all died trying to save the one chicken, and the chicken eventually just flew out on his own. The Darwin Awards. But, along the line of what Buddy just said, what William just said, your thoughts?
Well, and that's supposed to be Billy's strength is organization and detail. And what Buddy just mentioned, the play against Kentucky, and then you go back to the 2 men with the same jersey number against Utah. Those are organizational details that should not happen. Certainly not in your second year, your first full year when you've had a full recruiting year. And again, they're putting together a wonderful class. But if you lose to Vanderbilt, and we said, Buddy, I think before you came on, there's a stigma in the conference about losing to Vanderbilt. And again, Rob, you reeled off the examples at Auburn that it did not stand. And it just turned out to be and Auburn doesn't play Vanderbilt a lot or hasn't through the years, but when they've lost to them, it's been one of the final nails in the coffin of a number of Auburn coaches. So this game, it's homecoming. My wife's down there with the boys this weekend. So this is maybe one of the more important Vanderbilt games in Florida history in a sense.
Yeah. And it's nothing against Vanderbilt. A lot of my family members graduated from law school there and went to school there. And, got my friend Bill James listening to the show every day. His son Christian's a defensive tackle, starts for him if he's healthy. But Florida's a mystery to me, Buddy. And you know this from all the years when Coach Bryant would say, if Florida ever gets it all together, we're all going to be fighting for second. And people might be saying that about Texas A&M. I don't know, but Buddy, I love what you're saying. And all about college football. You're right. Florida's got next year, that schedule in 24.
Worse.
It's the worst I've ever seen.
Worse.
How'd that happen?
Yeah, that's the thing is that, Billy's not turned the corner. And it's hard. I get it. And winning a football game is hard. You can't beat yourself like that, though. He's too good of a coach to allow that. And that's the mystery. A guy who fancies himself as a guy of detail, making sure things are right, gets beat by stupid plays. I'll give you another example. I talked to Allie Peak Wilbur, who's one of the really good, podcasts.
Outstanding.
one of my favorite guys I have her on every Wednesday night, guys, I said, her husband was Eric Wilbur. He said to her, they knew the kicker was kicking the ball low all camp. When he got in and had a kick block, shouldn't somebody have thought about that? He's kicking the ball low, and they finally made the change to Trey Smack. He's been dead on. How hard is it to figure that out when the guy's kicking the ball and is getting blocked all the time? Something's wrong fundamentally. Get it fixed. I don't care. Yes, I know it's your fault, Billy. I get it. If it's your fault, then get it fixed.
Johnny in Dothan, Alabama, the capital of the wiregrass. Billy Napier has too many people on staff overanalyzing. It's creating paralysis. And I know that in the stock business, paralysis analysis. Look, it's good to have people, but, not everybody needs a battle buddy. That's a lot. I mean, William, again, you're hearing what these guys are saying. I'm going to give you an assignment right now. These are two of the best writers in America. I mean, he's the Basketball Hall of Fame. You're talking Buddy, former sports editor, New York Daily News, Denver Post. He's trained people like Woody Page, Rick Riley, St. Petersburg Times, now GatoradeMedia.com. What would be your lead story on any program that's in the second year of a coach that has unlimited resources? If they're not winning every game, you can't panic, but what would you write?
I'd write about how he can, if he came off a bad season, how can he rebound from last season? Or if he came off from a good season, how can he keep this thing going? It kind of leads into based off the season before and just the expectations from the previous season.
Yeah.
All right, let me jump in. Can I jump in and wait?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the thing. He has done that, And by the way, Johnny in Dothan, here's a trivia question for you. What great Florida quarterback was from Dothan? Nobody's going to get that. Great. I mean, great. Okay. Wound up signing a baseball contract. All right. But he was the backfield that year would have been one of the all-world backfields in Florida. He signed a baseball contract. He did not play his senior year. Think about it. Johnny in Dothan. All right. So now what you're saying is, yeah, you want to say how you're going to fix it. We've heard that. We've seen that movie. How you going to fix it? We know that we talk football every week, every day here, Gator football. We talk about it all summer. Got to get a better offensive line. You got to be able to stop something on third down. We got Arson Armstrong. We're not only drinking the Kool-Aid, we're bathing in the Kool-Aid, all right? All of a sudden they beat Tennessee. We're like, okay, now I believe in the Easter Bunny. I believe in Santa Claus and maybe the Tooth Fairy. I'm believing, okay? And then I get Kentucky. Come on, man. I can't deal with that. It's too emotional. So that's the thing that Florida fans think about. Patience is not their strength. But you know what? They look at Deion Sanders, what he did in his first year. Well, wait a minute. Look what he did in the first year. How come Billy can't do that? So there's an image issue there. And you're right. You want to say, what is the plan? How do you fix it? We've heard that. Now, when's it going to happen? And finally, Billy got mad on Wednesday. He said, I'm done talking. It's time to do something. I said, amen, brother. You just exactly said it right there. It's time to do something. So
yeah,
if they show up and kick Vanderbilt's butt, or there's going to be more people mad.
Yeah. Well, I like that convincing thing. If I tell you, MJ made a great point about something about when you tell a trader something, execute a trade. If I tell you tomorrow's Easter, by God, you better dye your eggs, because I don't just say things. And as a coach, Kevin, one of the great things, and William, watch what these two guys do, Buddy and Kevin, and that's why I love these. I love this Charlie in Memphis. This roundtable discussion is what we need. It is. I mean, Kevin, when you're watching this and you're listening, you don't panic. And no, you've covered college football and you're at the command post. It's not just the Gators, but let's look at Arkansas. We had Nathan Parodion, who played there for 4 years, 2 years under Chad Morris, 2 under Sam Pittman. And, you heard what he said about the locker room. You got to get a win. And with NIL, and I noticed this again with Kentucky in March Madness in the 2022 March when they lost to St. Peter's. And I pick up on stuff like this, guys. Only 2 players, Oscar Tshiebwe and one other player, looked visibly upset. Remember, at that time, every player on the Kentucky basketball team was making $200,000 or more in NIL. The coach for St. Peter's that year was making $200,000 a year. You better be careful with that locker room, Kevin. Your thoughts?
Well, we saw a good example of that, I think, a week ago after the Auburn-Georgia game. You could tell, it's one thing for you, Freeze, to come into the post game and say, there were a lot of tears in that locker room.
Yeah.
There are a lot of hurt feelings in that locker room. They're not celebrating because they came close to Georgia.
Yeah.
Although they hadn't come close to Georgia in any of the previous 9 losses in the previous 10 games.
Yeah.
But you could see it on his face. You could see it in his eyes. He had shed some tears.
Yeah.
They knew that was a game they could have won. Even though Brock Bowers may be the best player in America and he took over in the fourth quarter. He also made some incredible catches where he wasn't running free. He had to reach behind him. They weren't great throws. He made one-handed catches. And if Auburn does, 2 or 3 things differently in that game, maybe that game turns out differently.
Make a play. That's what
that game hurt. They weren't celebrating that again. Hey, we were competitive with Georgia. We were tied with Georgia with 5 minutes left in the game during that last drive by the Bulldogs. They knew that was a step forward, but they're not where they want to be. And that's why I flashed back to what I think is one of the more foundational games of the Pat Dye era, his first year, when they lost at Tennessee 10-7. They were driving to maybe win the game. They fumbled the ball away. And that post-game speech by Pat Dye about laying your guts on the line, and sometimes you're going to come up empty. And the only thing you can do is lay them on the line again and again and again. They played that speech, part of that speech, on the Jumbotron in Jordan-Hare Stadium. It was prophetic the way the game turned out last Saturday. But that's one of the seminal moments of the Dye era when that was progress, but they still had a way to go.
Yeah, I was at that game. Auburn lost 10-7. I lost $20, I bet, with my friends Tom Gallagher and Joel Johnson, and I was so mad. Auburn got down to the 4-yard line with 1:04 left and couldn't get a play in. Ken Hobby was the quarterback, Tifton, Georgia. Ron O'Neal, fullback for Auburn, barbecue number 44 out of Walker County High School up there around Atlanta. Lionel James, he went in the locker room after the game. He goes, reason we ain't winning games, we got little guy. He wasn't being mean to Lionel because he loved him. He later went on to love him, and rest in peace, Lionel. But he got bigger players in there. But I think both of y'all, and William, you hear what's going on here? Knowing the history, the traditions, and the heroes of college football, when y'all write, Buddy, you and Kevin both reference so much history and how it all comes back 30, 40, 50 years later, doesn't it?
You have to pay attention. Something happened last week I'm surprised not anybody picked up on. It was the 15th anniversary of the iconic Tim Tebow promise. All right. And I was sitting from here to there as far as friends when that happened. What a moment. That was our new rocketing speech for Florida.
Yes.
It's not stone, it's in metal on the side of the building in Gainesville. And Tebow made an astounding statement, and nobody picked up on it. He said that was misnamed. It should have been not called the promise. It should have been the apology. He said, I was trying to apologize because we failed. And I said it twice to make the point. I didn't say we were going to win the national championship. We were going to work harder than anybody else in the world. But that really should have been called the apology. That's an amazing comment. When you think about it. It's a lot different, isn't it? The second thing is...
And think about it, buddy. Really, that's what Florida fans, I think, needed to hear from Billy Napier last Saturday.
That's exactly right, Kevin. That's exactly right. And that's the kind of thing we're dealing with at an iconic level. The last thing I want to say, we're running out of time. NIL. I'm going to give it up for Utah. What a great move they made. Did you guys hear about what they did in Utah?
Yeah.
Hell, the starters got a Dodge truck. They all got one. That's the way to treat it. Then you don't have to worry about somebody getting favored. You all get the same thing. Brilliant move by Utah. Brilliant.
William, what is the Auburn Plainsman doing for all the writers? A new Kia from his coach, Kia of Auburn. What are they doing for y'all with NIL?
Swim.
I see that grin on your face. Something good, huh?
Well, nothing to the level of what Utah got, but we've had some different sports writers, Auburn alumni people come in and talk to us, which has been nice to make.
Like who, William? Who?
Yeah.
So you have a few like local people, one that works for the Opelika Observer, and you have a guy from AL.com, And then you had a guy that writes for what's it called? He's a Golden State beat writer, Golden State Warriors beat writer, came and talked to us. And then
get him to get Kevin Scarbinsky. Then you got somebody. Okay,
get either one of these guys.
I love doing that kind of thing. All you got to do is ask.
He's light years ahead of any of those guys. I tell you right now. He's one of the
William,
best in the business.
You hear what in both of these guys, Kevin got inducted into the U.S. Basketball Writers Hall of Fame at the Final Four in Houston in April, and Buddy again has written in the same press box. Jesse Outler, Furman Bishop, Jack Hairston. Buddy's a legend in his own right, as is Kevin. But I'm going to tell you something, William. Reach out to him. Bring him in here. You want to be a fast bike rider or a fast runner? Get on the back wheel of the fastest guy on the team.
Kevin's saying right now they're just old. All they are. They are old guys.
No. Hey, man. Every time y'all are on this show, we're bringing in another one of our interns on here, Oakley McFerrin up in Nashville, we'll get the kind of the perspective he is an aspiring journalism student, hoping to be at Auburn next year, wants to get into broadcasting and all. Senior at NBA, starts as a wide receiver for the red team up there. The gentleman scholars, as your mom calls them, Oakley. But yes, Oakley and his mom and my son, they go to every Auburn game, home, away. You had to miss the Cal game because of the old ACT. But you've heard this discussion. You're on with Kevin Scarbinsky, one of the top sports writers in America, along with Buddy Martin and William Halliday, the intern. You met him over there at Auburn at Biddy and Bo Coffee at the UMass game. But let's get your perspective on, we've got about 15 minutes. We'll go long, but your perspective on college football. And, going to games with my son, Wilson, it's like going to a game with me. If you expect the team to play a full 60, you got to stay a full 60. You go to the game. You don't leave early, do you? Whatever's going on, you stick it out, don't you?
Yes, sir. I go to the full game.
Yeah. Okay. So your thoughts on what's going on in college football? Y'all's generation loves the game as much as we do, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? You don't have to agree with me.
Yes, sir, for sure. I think the passion's still there for college football. Obviously, with the NIL landscape, it's all changing. But, I think college football is as big as it's ever been. Money-wise, it's profiting as much as it's ever been. I think college football is in a great state.
Yeah, and Kevin,
Rob, let me ask Oakley and William, what was the feeling like last Saturday when Cam Newton rolls out there and he's essentially the head cheerleader in front of the student section, and that place, again, you could feel it on television. You could feel the emotion and the passion with Cam out there leading the cheers. What was that like in the stadium?
Like
it brought a whole new energy to the stadium. Just a legend like that, Cam Newton comes to the stadium, everyone gets fired up, gets the fans right for the game.
Yeah, I was there, Ryan, in the student section. He had a great outfit on. That's something that a lot of people pointed out.
I want one.
Yeah, I don't know. I went to the Georgia game when they came here 2 years ago, and I think that was a better representation of Cam Newton when he had his shirt off and like flexing and everything with Bruce Pearl. I thought that was more cool in that sense, but still great that he showed up.
I'll tell you what's great is when your Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift shows up. That's great right there.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy, I got to say, though, buddy, Auburn, there was a picture of a handful of Auburn legends that might be the greatest recruiting poster for any athletic department in the country.
You had Cam and who else?
You had Cam Newton. You had Suni Lee, gold medalist in gymnastics. You had Charles Barkley. You had Charles Barkley. One of the 50 greatest NBA players, NBA MVP, two-time Olympic gold medalist. And then you had Frank Thomas, only SEC player in the Baseball Hall of Fame, World Series champion, two-time MVP. And it wasn't complete because Bo Jackson wasn't there. That's pretty hard to top as from one school, that level of icon across the board in different sports.
They didn't have Gus Year out. You don't know who Gus Year out is. Gus Year out played one of the great games. He got a fumble on his shoulder at the 2-yard line, ran it back 98, and later a guy named Steve Spurrier kicked the field goal to beat him and win the Heisman Trophy. Gusty
Year Out was with Gary Sanders on the play-by-play of punt Bama punt 17, 16, and 19.
Okay.
And Gusty was going so crazy. I'm not sure that was an even year. So Alabama was the host up in the press box. I'm sure he was admonished severely. Today's word of the day. No cheering in the press box. But, Oakley and William, start with you, Oakley. Buddy has, again, been sports editor of the New York Daily News, St. Petersburg Times.
They don't care about
Denver
that, Rob.
No,
they don't care.
That's like saying to a coach, see, so when you think about writing the stories, do you read as much and I think reading's like lifting weights with your brain. I love to read. That's how I learn, when I write it down. Do you read a lot? Do you read just websites? Do you like to read newspapers? Like, William writes for the Plainsman. You can get that online every day, but are you a big reader?
Yes, sir. I mean, I read every free period I have in school. It's me reading sports articles, whether it's Auburn, Steelers, those are my two teams. And if you're going to write on something, you need to read probably twice or three times as much on the subject if you want to write on that subject.
Did you ever hear of a guy named Terry Bradshaw?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have signed football of them back here.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Yeah.
He goes to Steelers. How many Steelers games did you go to last year?
I went to 3.
Yeah. They're pretty fun, aren't they?
Yes,
Kevin,
sir.
you a Steelers or are you well, here from Pottsville, PA, Eagles?
I'm from 90 miles from Philadelphia, so
Of course.
I'm a Philly guy.
Mm-hmm.
I got it. William, you follow the pro football?
Not as much as these other guys here, but I was a big Denver Broncos fan with Peyton
Oh,
Manning.
my gosh.
Well, my dad was a big Peyton Manning fan, so I had to.
No, I just spent half my life covering the Broncos. Anyway, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Buddy, how cool was that Mile High Stadium covering the Broncos? God almighty. I mean, yeah, and talking to Brendan, I forget, Brendan lived out there for 30 years?
No, he says 30, more like 15. He claims to be from Colorado. He was born here in Florida, okay? Just get that straight right now. It was amazing. It was an amazing time. We'll spend more time on it later. I'd like to get from these two young men before I go. Number one, who is the best sports writer you've ever read, okay? And what is the greatest thing about college football?
Oakley?
Who wants to go first? Oakley?
Yeah, Oakley, William, somebody go first. Yeah.
The greatest writer.
I'll go first. Greatest writer is a local guy I think I've mentioned on the show. His name's Jeff Calkins in Memphis. He's been on some different ESPN radio shows and things in the past, but I think he's a really good sports writer. He doesn't write about sports anymore. He actually went the local route and just started writing stories, but he still hosts a sports talk show in Memphis. And I think just he's really good. And then what was your other question? Something about
what's the greatest thing about college football
greatest thing
for
about
you?
college
What is
football
the greatest thing? Yeah.
It's just game days in general. I mean, just getting to watch, like you have a game at every moment of the day that you can watch. You got the 11 o'clock slot, then you got the afternoon slot, then you got the night slot. Like I've got 3 games on my plate today that I can watch and enjoy.
Okay, you passed. I don't know Jeff Calkins. I don't remember the name, but I'll look him up. I want to make sure he
very
meets your
good.
standard.
He's
All right.
very good.
All right.
Oakley?
Yes, sir. Mine probably Brett McMurphy. He's a big ESPN writer. He's big on Twitter. He has a lot of articles. He covers all things college football.
Brett McMurphy, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good reporter.
Greatest
Former
thing about college
newspaper
football.
guy from Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
By
newspaper
the way,
guy. And like, hey, do me a favor, both of y'all. You know this, William, but Oakley, start following, subscribe to the Birmingham Lead. Do yourself a favor.
Yeah.
You want to learn to be a great writer?
good stuff, yeah.
Start and Scarbo knows, and GatorbaitMedia.com. Just go right on the website and subscribe to both of them. You know why? Because you need to know about as much as you can. You can't just focus, on one team, because what goes on in Gainesville, Birmingham, Norman, Oklahoma, it has an effect. It's a cause and effect. It's a ripple effect. It's like a 100-story building. If you don't put the rebar in and you don't use the right engineering and architecture on the 10th floor, the 100th floor may topple over. But I think that's the number one thing. But your favorite thing about college football, Oakley, I agree. That's a great question from these two oracles up on top. That's why they're on top, and the young fellas are down below. But it doesn't mean that you're bad, but they're the oracles.
Yes, sir. I think the greatest thing about college football is just Obviously, NFL, you got more talent, better players probably, but you don't have the atmosphere you have in college football. College football is like no other. You tailgate all day for it. It's just a family environment. You see somebody with an Auburn hat on 2,000 miles away from Auburn, you say, War Eagle, and you're a family like that. So I think that's just the family it creates is the greatest thing about college football.
All right, final piece of advice from me, and I got to go. I'm going to say to both of you, forget everything you just heard and go be great yourselves. You change it. You can do it. Make sure you stay true to who you are. If you want to modify your style, learn, grow, but you have the power to change it yourselves. So go make yourself great.
I love it.
And find your voice. Don't try to be follow the example. Learn from guys like Buddy Martin, but find your voice.
Yeah. I think that's as best as I've heard it said. Man, look, we have run out of time. Buddy, thank you so much. GatorbaitMedia.com, the Buddy Martin Show. Monday, sometimes Friday and Saturday now, correct?
Well, Friday is Urban. We have Urban. We had a great show on Friday. Urban Meyer. Yeah, we had him for 30 minutes. He was really, really good. I'll tell you about it later, but we had a special event coming up in Gainesville with Urban and Steve. It's going to be sensational to raise money for a great cause.
One quick question. I got a bunch of texts the last couple of days from a guy up in Clarksville, Tennessee. Said, I'm hearing there's talks between Urban Meyer and Michigan State. And I said, not according to Buddy Martin. So
No, I'll just say this. At the Gainesville Quarterback Club 3 weeks ago, Urban was there, and I went up that night, and Shelly, his wife, was there. And the question came up with all these, Urban, do you want to coach football again? And Shelly stood up and said, no. Oh, that is that conversation right there. He's not going to coach anywhere else. There are some shirts, however, out there that say, hire Urban. They got one in Notre Dame, got one in Florida. Hire Urban. He's on everybody's list right now, but he's done. I'm done, buddy.
Well, he's 187 wins, 32 losses, 3 national championships. Not a bad run. Kevin, let them know how they can follow you and keep up with you. And as always, we most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We have the best guests, the best sponsors, the best viewers. So thank all of y'all for sharing your time with us on this Saturday. And again, Kevin, take us out and then the rest of the day, and I'll put that menu up here one more time at the Cherry Farm. But Kevin, take us away.
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at Kevin Scarbinsky. You'll get links to all my stuff. Have a great day today. And most importantly, I know it's college football Saturday. Go Phillies.
Yeah, it's going to be football, baseball playoffs. It doesn't get much better. Hey, thanks, everybody. Roundtable's been a blast. Go watch some games. Go out and do some great things. We'll see you Monday.